Welcome to Coffee with Danny and V. I am V. This is Danny. And the reason we're looking so
teary-eyed
is because we're having a real weird morning. We've made each other laugh so much already this morning. Maybe stick around to the end of the video. Maybe we'll throw some bloopers in there. There are a lot. But I think it's actually underscores what we're talking about today, which is all about the importance of community when you're going through perimenopause and menopause. When we can laugh with each other, when we can joke with each other, it just takes some of that stress and that pressure off us. And you know, as women who are going through the perimenopausal transition, stress is no joke, right? And so if you've got a community of supportive people to help you, that is what we're here to talk about today. How you find them, who they should be, how you talk to them, and why you should talk to them. So
it's all about community.
It is.
It really is.
Yeah. And I think when we say community, we all think we know what that means. But when we talk about a support community, especially for women in midlife, I think it's important to recognize that you've got to be friends with other women. Now, Danielle and I are both introverts, right?
Yes.
we don't go out a lot.
And it's funny because we do these shows and we talk with our team and I feel fine in those environments. In fact, I've said it a lot that in a one-on-one conversation or even in small groups, it's I feel pretty comfortable opening up and talking about stuff. But even with, sometimes these shows or us getting out on social media, I'm still I like my little private little bubble,
Right. Exactly. And, you go to social functions and now that things are starting to open up, I find myself getting a little bit of post-COVID anxiety, especially as an introvert. And so, when we say that you need a supportive community, we mean that you need to talk with other women, even if you're an introvert like we are.
I think even more if you're an introvert, because I think that extroverts tend to naturally talk to other people. And because they're so outgoing, that I think that sometimes introverts can internalize a lot and they do it too much, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely. Oh, for sure. For sure. So I think it's important that you have women in your network who are your same age. And you don't have to have a ton. I'm not saying you got to have 30 friends, right? But you need to have at least one woman who is your same age.
I'm going to say it doesn't have to be the same age.
Oh, no. Yeah, right.
In the sense that you're 10 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. A lot of my friends are actually 10 years difference. I thought I waited late to have kids, and really I was 26 or so, and a lot of my friends actually waited till they were about 35. So, they're 10 years older than I am. But I also have some really close friends that are almost 10 years younger than me.
Exactly. So I think you should have a friend who is your same age, because you're most likely going to be in similar work situations,
life
instances, and similar physical stuff going on.
Yes.
But I think you also need a friend who is older than you, who can clue you into the kinds of things you could expect, especially in midlife. And I think it's absolutely vital that you have friends who are significantly younger than you to help you keep abreast of things that are changing in popular culture for no reason, right? I mean, the whole skinny jean thing. Thank God I have younger friends who could be like, no, I mean, you should probably not wear those skinny jeans so often, right? Every day. But I think it's also important for us to have women who are younger, who we're friends with, who we can help navigate through what to expect, just as those older women friends that we have help us navigate, right? If you don't have a support network that branches across all of these age ranges, I think you're really cutting yourself short from different experiences, different ways of looking at things, and different menopausal and perimenopausal symptoms and things that they might not be on your radar unless you have those people in your life.
Well, and I think, that comes down to perspective, and your perspective of kind of how you were talking about with the older friends, they might be further along in their menopause journey in order to have, and so they might be able to give you some, input, feedback, what worked for them, maybe the feeling of there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So important. And there is light at the end of the tunnel. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, and I think too, with friends and community, you think of community sometimes as a very broad, and so we've kind of honed it in on a very close-knit group.
Yeah, a support community.
Yeah.
Which is different from your community at large.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard because I think in a lot of ways you develop friendships, different types of friendships, and some feel more maybe superficial than, others that you feel more open and you can have like a very personal conversation, because a lot of things on menopause are very personal conversations. And sometimes you don't, as we talk about this a lot, that we're trying to really open up the conversation on menopause, but you still have a lot of women that just don't feel comfortable, and that's okay. Like, we're not out there to tell you, yes, we want you to open up, and it's going to help you in the long run, mentally through your menopause journey. But we're not here to force you, right?
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable, you don't feel comfortable. And sometimes talking to a stranger even feels more at ease than somebody, that you're close to sometimes, to kind of start that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is what I really love about our app, because I think that brings in a population of women that are going through similar things that you can really, have a conversation with, even if it's through, with a filter, basically, right? You're doing it on an app, but you still get to have that interaction with other women that are going through similar things that maybe you don't have that really close personal connection with, that you feel embarrassed, or you feel like,
and you see them at a party and they know all about your period.
Right? For some of us, that's, I encourage you to find that friend, even if you think that you have that friend, but you haven't opened up in that way yet, I would encourage you to do it, because I think that it offers too this sense of relief even from the other woman. I think you'd be surprised if you are the first one to open up that conversation. I think you'd be surprised at how relieved the other side actually feels, of like, oh my gosh, I'm going through that too. Or, you know what? I thought I was the only one. We hear that all the time.
Yes. And you're not the only one. No. And the fact that you're on an app or you're watching a video like this, you should take a look at, how many other people are watching videos like this. You're not alone.
You're not.
Not at all. So the other aspect of your support community that I think is important is your family. And I want to break it out into two sections. First, I want to talk about the women in your family, the nieces, the aunts, the sisters, the grandmas, the moms, right? The cousins. I am so close to one of my cousins. She's basically like a sister to me. Those women have some insights into what might be happening with your body, because genetically you're very similar, right? You share a lot of the same genetic makeup, and what you experience may be very similar to what they're going to or have or are experiencing. So don't discount the women in your family as part of your support network. And I'm 3,000 miles away from every woman in my family except for my daughter, who I'll talk about in a minute. 3,000 miles away. But I try to make sure that we're connected on social media, that I'm, calling, that I'm talking to them on a regular basis, because it's important to make sure that you've got your family support as well. And the other thing is our immediate nuclear family, right? Our daughters, and our sons. Yes, you should absolutely be open about what's going on with you to all of your children, no matter what their gender might be, because they need to understand what's happening to you and why you respond in some of the ways that you respond. And the other thing is your partner. And that can be one of the most beneficial relationships that you have, because your partner has already committed to being with you through thick and thin. And so when you can be honest with them, they absolutely want to support you because they've already chosen to be your support partner in a myriad of other ways. So don't be embarrassed to talk about these things. Be honest with your partner about what's happening to you. It's really vital. I mean, my relationship with my husband is probably the most significant relationship that I have, possibly accepting the relationship I have with my child, right? And so if we can't be honest with our partners, whoo boy, we can't be honest with the most important person in our life. So I just want to throw that out there too.
And I also want to encourage women. Men are a completely different
ball of wax, yeah.
Right?
And your partner may not be male. Your partner may be female.
Yes.
And either is going through, or will go through this. So, the same thing applies. Yeah. Be honest, be open.
Yeah. And, I'll open this up and this is very kind of, as we get into kind of personal information. And with Vanessa and I's, even our husbands, they're very different in personality type. So her husband is a lot more open to discussing these things. My husband is a little more closed off. And that goes down to, as much as we've talking about the generational talk of women in menopause, men have a generational thing too. Yeah. And I think the millennial kids that are coming in, the
kids, they're like going to be 40 this year. Millennials are going to be 40 this year, you guys.
Okay. Retract that. The younger generations.
You're all kids to us, all of you.
You get older, and anyone younger than you, it feels like a kid. Yeah. I don't know. But the younger generation really, I think, is being more open to the conversations that are being had, that we're opening up around, including, and so even to your point about talking to your younger sons, be open about what you're going through, because that then teaches them to be okay with it later with their wife, right? That's going to go through this, or their partner. And so, there's okay too to understand that maybe opening up to your partner, maybe take baby steps. I think that's something I've had to adopt really, is understanding those baby steps. And that's okay, but I'm still opening up, and I'm still having those conversations, and I'm still informing them, and, and I'm being very open with my kids. In fact, it was interesting. I was listening to a podcast, and these women were talking about menopause, of course, and we live it. But, it was interesting because they were talking about that. They were talking about how identifying, what your mother was going through. And this woman had an epiphany. She literally was like, I just realized right now that in my teens, my mother and I's relationship was strained for a period of time. Mm-hmm. And she realized that, light bulb, it was probably the fact that she was going through perimenopause and different things, but she didn't open up,
right,
to her daughter. And so her daughter, here was, this woman was older, probably 50s, I would say. I don't recall, but it was like all of a sudden at 50 years old, after she's been going through menopause, it was like, oh, light bulb moment. Like that's right. What my mom was actually going through, which is what strained our relationship. And I think that if you can be open and honest about what's going on, you're going to reduce those strains, especially with your nuclear family, because you're living with them. You have this day-to-day relationship, and these symptoms affect you day to day. And so if you can open up to them, if you can be honest with them, if you can talk to them about what's going on, then you really can help yourself have the sanity to move through menopause.
and help your family understand that what's happening with you and the dynamics in those relationships is not necessarily the real dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I had my menopause rage in my early 40s, I know that it was affecting my relationship with my husband because I would just blow up out of nowhere. And, that's not fair to him. He didn't do it. He didn't change. My hormones changed. our relationship and my love for him didn't change, but my hormones changed. And I think if we can be honest about that, it really gets us a step closer to keeping those relationships intact. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about when you talk about supported community is your doctor. Yeah. So here's the thing. Doctors have like 10, 15 minutes typically to spend with the average patient. So I realize that having a conversation with your healthcare practitioner can be tricky. You got 10 minutes to talk about all the stuff that's going on with you. But knowing that perimenopause and these fluctuations in estrogen, as it decreases and you go into menopause, knowing that that affects so much of your health, not just your physical health, but your mental health, knowing that that is a confounding factor for so many other things, including heart disease, osteoporosis, stress-related issues like stomach ulcers. I mean, it runs the gamut, and it really can impact your health in a negative way. And so if you cannot talk to your doctor and your doctor cannot be part of your support network, you're missing a crucial piece. So you've got to prioritize the perimenopause/menopause discussion that you have with your physician the minute you get in that office and he or she comes in to talk to you. You need to say, hey, I think I have estrogen fluctuations. I'm right. Here's what I'm experiencing. And how is that going to factor in to all the other healthcare decisions that we're going to make today? You've got to take the reins on this, ladies, because your doctor will, skirt through that chart in 10 to 15 minutes and then on to the next, because that's what they have to do.
Well, and on top of that, too, they're not getting the training into menopause, which is one of our big things of what's fundamentally wrong with menopause. Doctors are not receiving the trainings into menopause. Even OBGYNs, they get the training on your reproductive health and having babies and stuff like that, but it falls short at menopause. And so all too often we hear that the only options that are offered to women are HRT and antidepressants. For a lot of women, that's not the options they want to partake in. Some, it works well for some, but for both Vanessa and I, that was something that we didn't want to do. I don't want to be on an antidepressant. That's not, I don't want to say that no woman in menopause should be on an antidepressant, because I know that there's women that it really benefits, but I don't think that it's the end all.
Yeah, it's not the solution for every woman.
Right.
And if it's the solution for you, you absolutely should use it. It's a solution. And here's the other thing. If you're having really significant symptoms, you absolutely need to talk to your doctor about all of your options, because there may be underlying concerns that you aren't going to be aware of until you have an honest conversation with your doctor. So just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Well, and I think so back to the point is that they're not getting a lot of training on it. And I think that we have to be, again, taking things into our own hands to talk about our symptoms, to really, for us to understand what's going on with our bodies, so that we can properly talk to our doctors about what's going on with our bodies and push forward a better conversation with our doctors. Which, again, I'll go back to the app, which is why we developed this, the Mental-Life app and the health tracker, so that you could track all of the symptoms around menopause, so you can clearly identify what's going on, including triggers.
Yeah.
And you'd be able to take that to your doctor with a report, with an insight, and say, you know what? This is how many times I've been having it. Look at my, trend lines. Look at what's been going on. Look at how I've been experiencing these 5 different symptoms, 10 different, maybe all 40. Who knows? Because every woman is different. And that's hard too when you're trying to diagnose, menopause. And not that it's something, I hate that word too, diagnose, because it's not a disease. It's not. It's a natural transition in life, but you go through some serious bodily changing functions.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's ways to find help to help support so that it lessens, what you're feeling.
Right. So your doctor should absolutely be part of your support community. And then the other one I want to touch on is coworkers and employers / bosses, whatever it might be for you. Because when you're starting to enter perimenopause and into menopause, it can cause things like brain fog, hot flashes when you're in a meeting, right? Symptoms that make you feel like you are less capable at work, even though that's not the case, or they actually could interfere with some of your job function. Either way, you need to be honest with the people that you work with and the people who you work for, if you work for someone. Because if they don't know what's happening to you and you start to have issues and you start to feel like you're out of control, that's just going to keep spiraling. Now, I know this is hard because when I was working in the job I had before we started this company, I had a female boss who was older than me, who I consider a friend, who I, in a lot of ways, think of as a mentor. And I couldn't even say, hey, I think this is happening to me. Well, first, because I didn't even know that it was happening to me at the beginning. But as I gradually got that understanding and realized that the brain fog I was having and the mood swings I was having were happening at work, and I was really trying to keep a lid on them as best I could, but I felt like I couldn't talk to her because I was embarrassed. And I am an advocate for women in this phase of life now because I went through that. And so I know from personal experience how hard it is to talk to your boss, to talk to your coworkers, especially if they're male, especially if you look up to them in any kind of meaningful way, right? That's why I couldn't talk to my boss, because she just seemed to have it all together and to never have anything that threw her for a loop, which is why I admire her so much. But I really felt like, she's going to see that I'm weak. She's going to see that I'm not, up to her standards, her caliber. And so I get it. It's tough. But I think if you can have those conversations, you sort of nip that feeling like you can't control what's going on in your body in the bud, right? Yeah. You regain some sense of control about your career and your career trajectory and your work balance and just all of that stuff.
And I think too, getting past the fear, try it, right? Just try having that conversation. Because I think you might be surprised at the end of it. We go into a lot of things with fear, right? It's the fear of not having it together, or the fear of not, feeling like you're capable anymore, or, to do the job or anything like that, especially in, your career field. And most women, that are going through menopause and perimenopause, they're at the peak of their careers. This is when you're ready to be looked up to and respected. And I think women think that they lose that respect. And I think it's the opposite. I think that really it's the opposite. You have to have just that conversation so that people can understand. And so you can collect yourself more and just be more aware of what's going on with you. And if the other people around you, the same way you save your marriage, the same way you save your family life, you save your work life, right? By being honest, by being open. And you can choose what level of open and, you want to be. Right. But I think have that conversation. Just say, you know what, this is what I'm experiencing. It is because I'm going through menopause. Most women have heard of the word menopause, although they don't understand it completely, and they don't fully understand the definition a lot of times. They don't understand, they say that they're going through menopause when really a lot of times it's perimenopause. Right.
Or they say it's pre-menopause when it's perimenopause.
So
there's a lot of confusion. And we're not saying you have, I was doing this job when I had my 3-week period, which you've all heard about, and I won't bore you. But even now, I don't think I would feel comfortable, especially with a male boss, going in and saying, well, I'm still having my period. It's been 3 weeks. I have terrible cramps. I have to change my tampon every 2 hours. TMI, right? Don't need to know that. But to say, I'm working through some hormonal issues with my physician, and that's what's going on with me right now. That's totally acceptable, right?
Yes.
Just the way you talk about it, the way you phrase it, find something that you feel comfortable saying to that person, but don't leave them out of the conversation. don't leave them out of insights into what's happening to you.
So that gives me a great idea for an article on the app around giving some tidbits or lines that you can help, invoke conversation with your boss and your coworker about what's experiencing, or even your family members. So I like this.
I do too. Useful tips and tricks and phrases to say to the people in your life when you don't want to talk about menopause.
Yes.
Right?
Because sometimes it's hard to come up with the words.
Yeah. So we're going to give them to you.
Yes.
I love it.
And I think that could make it easier to have, and I know it for me, I'm great with numbers. I'm great with speaking sometimes, but putting words on paper.
I'm great with speaking, so I'll tell you sometimes.
I have to tell you, I've been having brain fog this week, and it's been a busy week. It's been really busy. There's a lot going on. Home, work, everything.
And she was covering for me while I took a little bit of a vacation, and I really want to say right now in public that I appreciate it.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Okay, so thank you. But I cannot tell you how many times we were in a meeting and I knew what I wanted to say, but it just wasn't coming out. It just wasn't coming out. Like, I remember even this week I turned to you and I was like,
what is that?
What is it? And you're like, I don't even know what you're trying to say. You haven't given me any hints. And so I ended up kind of describing the word. She found it for me.
Took us a minute to get there.
But again, it's an example of how being honest about, kind of things that are happening with you or whatever. It's not that I was having a stupid moment or anything like that. It just wasn't coming out of my mouth. My brain was thinking it. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew the beginning letters even. I just couldn't get the word out.
It was so funny. And that's the thing, right? You feel like perimenopause and menopause symptoms can just throw your world into chaos sometimes. And that's why you need a supportive community. That's why you need people to help you get through this. Coworkers who you can say, brain fog, what's that word?
Yeah.
Right? Why you need to know what you can expect by talking to your mother and your grandmother and your aunts, by letting your nieces and your cousins and your daughters know what they can expect based on your experience. All of these support people will benefit from your insight and from your wisdom and from your experience as well. So it really is a two-way street. Try to remember that, when you're talking to these folks, that it's not just about you getting something out of the relationship. It's about everybody getting something out of the relationship.
Lead by example.
Oh,
That was what
that.
I was thinking. Like, you really are. And I think as women, as we move through this conversation about, or this, I want to call it a movement, of talking about menopause, opening up about menopause, lead by example, and I think that is one of the things that really drives me, is for not doing it for myself as much, probably because I'm more of a people pleaser type person. But I want to lead by example. I want to show the younger generations, the people coming up behind me, or, people that might be struggling, that it's okay. Like, that's been one of my things through all of my life experiences, and probably why I am so open about all the things that have happened with me in my life and all the things I've gone through, is because if it can help give you perspective, if it can help show you that it's okay, you can talk about these things, and I'm going to show you how to do it. So lead by example, ladies.
And don't forget that you can find your support community in a lot of different ways. You can go out and join clubs in your local neighborhood, right? A gardening club, a book club, go on to Meetup, find some folks, right? But you can also find community digitally. That's the beauty of the age we live in. And so if you are on the app, you've got a community right here to support you. Make friends here. Talk to other women. bond over symptoms. So Danielle and I bond over peeing our pants when we laugh. Now, we've already bonded, so bond over things, your shared interests, your shared symptoms, whatever it happens to be. If you're not on the app, you will find a supportive community there. It's called Menolife. You can download it for in the Apple Store and on the Android store. I'm going to say brain fog.
Google Play.
Thank you. What's that word I'm looking for?
Google Play.
So we absolutely enjoy having these conversations with you. We encourage you, if you're not on the app, to get on the app. And if you are on the app, make friends there, because that's what it's for. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. I was just going to say it, and I was like, crap. I know there's two. All right.
Well, cheers.
That was so funny when you couldn't find that word. Oh my gosh. I mean, it wasn't funny at the time, right? But I had literally no idea where you were going. That thought, you were like, and I
I'd really given her no context. And I think we were on a Zoom call, actually.
We were.
I had given her no context, and I was just like, V, help me! Because it's not coming.
Oh man, it's too hot in here. We need air conditioning. We're about to talk about hot flashes. Oh man.
I'm glad I shaved my armpits.
Oh, that's